Ukraine was living in a peaceful condition. We did not attack anybody. On February 24, basically 10 days ago, we got all this. Everybody woke up, in 4 o'clock in the morning by hearing rockets that were hitting military infrastructure. And then everything started. We want the peace, but we are ready to fight. Our president says we're ready to fight until the last soldier. So they planned initially 3 days operation, and they wanted to basically conquer the whole country. This mission failed, and I think they will fail eventually. We are ready to find the peace. This is important, but it should not be, the peace seeking under the gun, So our proposition is to go back to the positions that military had before February 24, full ceasefire, and then we sit on the table and find a peaceful solution.
Мы потребовали гарантии, что НАТО не будет продвигаться.
We demand that NATO commits to staying away from the Russian border and withdraw the military infrastructure to where it was in 1997 when relevant agreements were made. We demand that Ukraine maintains its constitutional neutrality and not become a NATO member. We demand the demilitarization of Ukraine because there is a real threat to Russia from the Ukrainian territories. We also demand Ukraine stop the people of Donetsk and Lugansk from suffering.
Добивались, чтобы прекратились издевательства над жителями Донецка и Луганска. Иллюзий у нас никаких не было.
We have no illusion. In the past 8 years, we have done our best. We demanded the implementation of the Minsk agreements and the security guarantee from the U.S. But as usual, there was no concrete reply and no discussion of our proposals. We only got empty words that did not reflect the reality, that no one was threatening us. But then we found nearly 60,000 members of Ukraine military forces amassed on the borders of Donetsk and Lugansk. We had accurate information. The third military operation on Donetsk and Lugansk is already being prepared, and we have no moral right to abandon the people there. We know that the Chinese people want peace and call for peace. The purpose of all these actions by the West is to contain the development of Russia and bring Russia to its knees, just like what they have done to the whole of Europe and all European countries. We advocate a multipolar world. We did not let Syria be destroyed. Syria was only preserved as an independent sovereign state because of Russia. It's clear that the script for Syria was written in the same way as Iraq and Libya. But we built up enough strength to resist it. The fact is that what is happening in Ukraine is not just about that region. The Russia-Ukraine conflict is a major structural change in the world. The U.S. is losing its position as the world economic leader. They're trying to hold on to it and are unwilling to give up their hegemony.
Well, we are looking to have them as a guarantors, possibly, if we find some alternative route, we will need some, particular guarantees. So although all of neighboring countries, plus all the European Union and maybe China and Great Britain and US should be our guarantees. This is the only way as we see is to stop this war, because this war is progressing. They took over a nuclear station. It could be a big catastrophe, not only for Ukraine. You can imagine what would happen if the nuclear station will be blowing up. Well, NATO afraid that if they step into this game, that there'll be a new world war can start. That NATO also should play an important role, because Putin tries to always was, at least publicly, he expresses that his main fear is that NATO comes closer to his border. We are ready to find a compromise for this question. It's not a question, but he also adds some new conditions every time. For now, as far as we know, Russia thinks that they will make us basically surrender on this condition in a military way. So I think that we need some time so Russia better understands that it's not possible. Even if they triple the number of soldiers here, people will be fighting in these cities as a guerrilla, paramilitary, troops and so on. So I think it will be for years. We don't want this war to be for years, but we also don't want to capitulate, as you can imagine, because Ukrainian people right now are united, probably the most united nation that we've been during our 30 years of independence. That's why I think that Russia did a big job. They united all the politicians, all the people, all women, men and children and everybody against them. So now, if they don't want to have a long war for years, they have to kind of calm down, and we should sit down and talk in a peaceful way, but not through the military, way. I think it's Russia just has to realize that we will never do any decision under the gun, So if they step back, we are ready to talk and we will find the solution. 90% probability that we will find a solution that will suit both sides. But if they wanted to do it under the gun, we would never do it.
Вы знаете, мы к любому формату готовы.
We have prepared to accept all forms, whether face-to-face or virtual conference. The main thing is that the talks have to produce results. Dragging their feet to avoid making decisions, beating around the bush, diverting attention, or postponing the talks. These are their tactics, not ours. We're open to any time, any place, any form. The main thing is to produce a result. As for the meeting that Zelensky is desperately trying to arrange, it is certainly possible. Such a meeting should be substantially prepared, and the Ukrainian and Russian sides should agree on the agenda and some final documents, instead of expecting the presidents to meet without producing any results. Otherwise, why should these meetings take place? With some outcome documents with a substantive form, our president is prepared for such meetings.